This is BYU Sports Nation, brought to you by the BYU Store, simulcast on BYU TV and BYU Radio. Now, from Studio B, here's Spencer Linton and Jerem Jordan.
BYU Sports Nation is live, your day-to-day play-by-play in Studio B, presented by the BYU Store, official outfitter of BYU fans everywhere. Hope you're enjoying this Tuesday, December 14th, wherever and however you're connected. Always great to have you with us. I am Spencer Linton, teamed up alongside a guy who revels in counter-arguments, especially on live radio, Jerem Jordan.
Is this live? Yesterday, Aaron Roderick, the offensive coordinator at Brigham Young University's men's football team, American football, went on the Zone Sports Network with our guys Scotty G and Hans Olsen and said the following.
And the whole university has, so it's been a great experience overall.
So, I'm going to give you a chance to brag here. I know you won't do it, but there's a lot of people that said, yeah, but about last year. It's like, yeah, but everybody else was dealing with COVID. Yeah, but they did it without playing a good record or a good schedule. Yeah, but this and this and this. To be able to put together the record and the success that you guys were able to do this year against this kind of schedule, Coach, that's got to be rewarding for you.
Yeah, but Cam Rising didn't play quarterback against us.
Some more yeah buts. Yep.
Well played, Aaron Roderick. We've all heard that counter-argument a few times.
From Daryl, the Ute neighbor.
Exactly. Who didn't know who Cam Rising was until halfway through the season. But whatever. It's all good.
Cam Rising's ascension has been gnarly because he was the starter last year for like 7 snaps and then got hurt. Now he's in the Rose Bowl.
Now he's quarterbacking.
But he didn't play against BYU.
In the Rose Bowl. Hey, counter-argue this show lineup. Bowl week for BYU football. What's on the line? And how much of a difference would a bowl win over UAB really make? Senior defensive lineman Uriah Leiatawa joins the show with his opinions on that and much more. Plus, Blaine Fowler on what he expects from the Cougars when they show up in Shreveport to play on the old gridiron. Bring on today's BYU Sports Nation headlines.
BYU leaves for Louisiana today ahead of the Independence Bowl Saturday. Gunnar Romney says the team's ready to play.
You know, these last couple of weeks of practice have been really intense, really amped up. You know, there's been fights breaking out because it's been so competitive. You know, we're going ones against ones, offense against defense, and it's getting competitive. People are ready to go out and play another game against someone else.
Yes, they are. It's been a few weeks since the USC game. Cougar pregame live starts at 1:30 Eastern Saturday on BYU Radio. Countdown to kickoff starts at 2:30 Eastern on BYU TV. And this just in, the Sporting News has named Tyler Algier a second-team All-American. That's great. The Associated Press did not list Tyler Algier in its set of 3 All-American teams, 2 running backs for each team. So good to see Tyler acknowledged by the Sporting News.
I wonder if our guy Bill Bender had something to do with that at the Sporting News.
Bill, you dog.
Bill. How about some more news featuring a second-team All-American, this time on the offensive line, a guy who blocks for Tyler Algier. Clark Barrington says he will return to BYU next year.
Kind of already had my mind made up, I'm going to be here next year and continue to build upon what I've already done, and hopefully there's more in the future.
Yes, and
he looks tired.
Feel like the offensive line is great and getting greater.
Yeah, with Kingsley Suamate. Yeah, how could it not? That's awesome. He looks like he just had practice, which is what happened. ESPN's Joe Lunardi puts BYU hoops as the last 7 seed after the Creighton loss. Cougars play at Weber State Saturday. BYU sits at 29 in net today.
But Jerem, the panic button was hit after BYU lost to Creighton. Or was it? It shouldn't have.
We'll discuss. I don't necessarily agree with Joe right now, but yeah.
BYU women's basketball ranked number 20 in the new AP poll, dropping from number 16 last week following an overtime loss at Oklahoma, 99-91, a shootout. The Cougs 8-1 this season, ranked for a 3rd consecutive week, and host Washington State this Saturday, 2 Eastern. You can watch that live on the BYU TV app.
Sophomore Violet Zavodnik had the game-winning run for the United States U18 softball team, winning gold against Chinese Taipei in the World Baseball Softball Confederation U18 World Championships. Woo. Zavodnik was the WCC Player and Freshman of the Year in the spring. She's awesome. The 2022 season begins February 10th.
Congratulations to Violet. That is awesome news. Zach McWhorter named the National Athlete of the Week by the USTF CCCA, the pole vaulter extraordinaire. Again, on Friday, December 10th, broke his own school record. Zach is the first BYU athlete since 2015 to be named to the National Athlete of the Week during the indoor season. Does not happen often. All rise and shout. It's time for What's Trending.
You're talking about it, and so are we. It's What's Trending on BYU Sports Nation.
What's Trending presented by BYU Food to Go, the MVP of your next event. Elite 11. No, not the quarterbacks, but BYU football as a team chasing an elite number of wins in an individual season. Yes, the Cougars are chasing back-to-back 11-win seasons, and junior wide receiver Gunnar Romney has added some context for the bowl game buildup.
It's really awesome in cementing our legacy as this team. To get 11 wins, it's an amazing thing. And then, like Lopa mentioned right before I came on, it hasn't been done since the national championship season that we've gotten 11 wins 2 seasons in a row, which is unheard of. And so I think it'd be really cool to go out with a bang.
It has been a while.
Not exactly a true statement, but that's all right.
Jerem, what would an 11th win mean for BYU football?
BYU had 11 wins, in
06 and 07.
That's okay. But the point is the same, which is it would be awesome. There is a difference between 10 and 11. There is. When you have 0 and 1 losses, you're an elite company. Only 6 seasons in BYU history have done that. When you only have 2 losses, that's only happened 5 times. And then there are a bunch of teams that have had 3 or more losses that we don't even talk about that much. Even if they were incredible teams, that schedule or injuries or whatever made it so, or they just weren't good enough, that they had 3+ losses. So the 2 best teams ever to have 3+ losses, 85 and 90. Okay, those were incredible teams. You could argue 91 too. The 2 loss teams are special. Obviously, this team trying to fit into that category. I think regardless of what happens in the bowl game, obviously it would be disappointing if BYU loses to UAB. This team, because of the amount of Power 5s, 6-1, beating Utah ending the streak, the Big 12 invite, will be one of the remembered teams in BYU history. It is one of the best ever. It's whether you put it at number 8 or if BYU wins this bowl game, I think you can make a pretty good argument for. Let me give you that argument. 84, 83, 96 are the kind of consensus top 3 in BYU history. If you feel like this team belongs in there, maybe it's because of strength of schedule, right? I can see that argument, but I put them as high as 4 if they win the bowl game, when BYU wins the bowl game, because of the way they've navigated the toughest, most unique, one of the toughest, if not the toughest schedules in BYU history. Like pure number of Power 5s doesn't necessarily mean it was as tough as, say, 03, where you're playing like 2 or 3 top 10 teams.
91, 04, those are in the conversation as well.
90 was crazy. Yeah, all this stuff. So, yes, this is what, regardless of whether BYU wins the bowl game, it's one of the best ever, but it is unique company if you can finish back-to-back 11s. I mean, 06, 07 was the last time BYU did that. You look at just straight-up win percentage in a 2-year stretch, last year, this year, if BYU wins, most since 06, 07, 5th best 2-year win percentage of BYU history, tied for 5th for the best 2-year win total, fewest losses in a 2-year stretch since 84, 85. I think that's what Gunnar was getting at. It'd be incredible. And if BYU can get into the AP top 10 in that final poll, it'd be just the 4th time in BYU history the Cougars have done that. That'd be wild.
Imagine the most delicious meal that you have ever seen in front of your eyes, and that's different for everyone. Nobody wants the last bite of that meal to be gross or cold or have sat out for a while, and that's kind of how I feel the season would be for fans. We look at it with the big picture lens. That's what we do. But for fans, if BYU lost to UAB, then the last bite of a really good dish would be gross, and that is super disappointing. 2008, BYU starts 6-0. They're a top 10 team. They sputter at the finish and go 10-3. And we talk about the sputter at the finish. Oh, I can't believe BYU lost to Arizona in the bowl game with Austin Collie and Max Hall and Dennis Pitta.
With who?
Yeah.
Dennis.
2001. Amazing season. 12-0. Top 10 team. We focus on the sputter at the finish. Luke Staley breaks his leg. BYU gets blown out by Hawaii. They lose the bowl game to Louisville. 12-2 season was incredible, but we focus on what did not happen at the end. 1979, but BYU lost to Indiana because of a missed extra point.
And 79 is so long ago, no one really cares but us.
1990, Ty Detmer's Heisman season, beat Miami. BYU got blown out by Hawaii after Detmer won the Heisman. while he was in Hawaii, and then lost 65-14 to Texas A&M. We tend to, because of human nature, focus on the sputter if it comes to that. And so this is big. BYU needs to beat UAB so that we don't have a gross last bite of this delicious meal. And what else is on the line? Okay, we talk about being ranked. We always focus on rankings as like true relevance for BYU football and independence.
Only way to quantify it, at least.
Yes. Yeah. BYU is trying to finish in the AP top 10 for the first time in 25 years. BYU has not finished as a top 10 team since 1996. Technically 97 because the Cotton Bowl was on January 1st. But the 96 season. It's been 25 years since BYU has done that. They'll probably do that if and when they beat UAB. And BYU, as we talked about, hasn't had back-to-back top 11 finishes in the rankings since 1983 and 1984. They can equal that. There's going to be somebody that loses above BYU in the rankings because there are so many top 12 matchups that if BYU beats UAB, they will jump up at least one spot, and BYU will finish in the top 11 back-to-back seasons for the first time since Steve Young and Robbie Bosco did it in 1983 and 1984. That is wild. There's a ton on the line in terms of being ranked and relevant.
If BYU lost this game, it would suck. But this team is always going to be immortalized because it's the team that broke the streak against Utah, and it was the year BYU went to the Big 12. Like,
no argument on that.
Yeah, I think as the years go by, you think less about how crappy the end of the meal was and about, oh, that was a fun night with so-and-so and so-and-so. Like, when in 90, yeah, we think about, the great game with Miami. That's like the leg, and Ty won the Heisman. Like, over time, you're like, oh, yeah, and they did sputter at the end, but it's not like, there were some real highs there that were amazing. Like 01, yes, we think about the sputter, but we also think, oh, the Dominator and Luke Staley won the Doak.
My point is I don't want to have the conversation about any sputter at any point.
Oh, yeah, no one does listening to this, except for a couple of Ute fans watching this. What's up? Congratulations on the Rose Bowl. Go Ohio State. But I think this year will be immortalized regardless. I do think they're going to win the bowl game, of course. But I think if they lost it, this team will still be in a unique place in BYU history regardless. If they win, now, yes, we can start making the argument of like, oh, was this the fourth best season in BYU history? For me, it's kind of hard to argue this is better than 83, 96, or 84. I think you go as high as 4. That's like the ceiling on how good this team is.
Well, you're talking, if you look at the rankings alone in the 3 seasons you just referenced, 83 finished number 7, had 1 loss. 84 won the national championship, and 96 lost 1 game and finished top 5. So it's not going to happen.
Those are the 3 I brought up, that have been AP top 10 finishes, which is incredible. Now, there is some argument to like, okay, not all schedules are equal. 90 and 91 were crazy. Is winning a Heisman better than beating Washington State and Arizona? And 90 is an immortal season because it's the
Heisman Trophy and the Miami season.
Yeah, the win, those accomplishments were great. So it just depends what you want. If you categorize success by total wins, by win percentage, by ranking, by P5 wins, by rivalry streaks, like you have a lot of those in this season, which has been pretty special to say the least.
BYU needs to finish this off the right way. You got your coach extended through 2027. You're a top 13 team right now. You've been in every college football playoff poll over the duration of the last 2 seasons. Don't muff it, as one Gordon B. Hinckley said at one point at the end of the Lavelle Edwards career. BYU needs to finish this thing out.
Yeah.
Finish on a high.
Yes. I'm not saying I'm preparing for a loss or anything. I'm not. I'm just saying no matter what happens in the bowl game, this team's legacy to me has been pretty much secured. If they win this game, great. It's like cherry on top. But
yes, I want that cherry on top. I don't want anything else.
I've never been like, there's no cherry on this, so I'm disappointed. Like, what's that? This team is, the legacy is locked up, man. It's like they're incredible.
Well, I just don't. BYU has a chance to become only the 4th team ever to finish ranked in the postseason top 10. Like that.
That's awesome.
There's a lot on the line. Yes, it was great to beat Utah, but BYU misses out on a lot of
no buts in that sentence. No buts.
What ifs if they don't close the deal against UAB?
It was great to beat Utah, period.
Our question of the day: what is the difference between 10 and 11 wins for the legacy of this 2021 BYU football team. Let's go to Voice of the Nation.
This is the Voice of the Nation on BYU Sports Nation.
At Roberts_MN answers on Twitter. 11 wins keeps the momentum going towards next season, and more importantly, 2023, when BYU says hello to the Big 12. I don't know that a win in this bowl game factors into what happens when BYU transitions into the Big 12 in 2023. That's more about the 2022 season, in my opinion. But the momentum part absolutely resonates. BYU is going to be a preseason top 25 team, and
probably like top 15, dog.
If they lose this game, it could affect that. If they win this game, then you're right. You probably will be a top 15 team.
A 10-win team returning its quarterback, and if Tyler Algier comes back,
we'll be ranked.
It's not just ranked; it's like top 15. Like
you lose to UAB.
If BYU finishes, we're making drama out of nothing. Nothing exists there. Like BYU's not losing this game. No, why are we even talking like that's a possibility? Like. No, UAB does some really nice things. They pass the ball extremely effectively. They're one of the best in the country. They stop the rush extremely effectively. You haven't seen a team like BYU this year? Come on, man. I haven't even looked at their schedule. I guarantee they've not seen a running back like Tyler Algier.
What about UTSA? They played them tough.
Sheer McCormick.
Hey, he's a good player.
He is really good.
At BYU Arnold's on Twitter answers.
There's no Tyler Algier, though.
Win, and it's a legacy of top 10 finish. That's what I'm talking about. It just does not happen often. Lose, and the legacy is 6-1 versus P5, 5-0 against the Pac-12, breaking the streak against Utah, and proving Jerem's P5 phobia wrong.
They already have.
As BYU to have a better record than versus Power 5 than Group of Fives. Oh, good grief.
Yes. No. This is the outlier in the history of BYU. It's been incredible. I've loved every second of it, yeah. Up until this year, BYU had never really done anything like this. This is amazing. I want BYU to keep it going, right? I don't want this to be an outlier. I want this to be the new norm, which is, no, BYU does very well. Like, I'm hoping when BYU goes to the Big 12 and plays a 8 or 9 game schedule that there are, like, only 3 losses in conference, right? And you hope you don't lose a non-conference Power 5. But to go 10-plus is amazing. This has been one of the most fun, enjoyable BYU football seasons in a long time.
Hashtag BYUSN, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram if you would like to add to the conversation on social media.
Okay, coming up, what kind of impact will the return of Sir Clark Barrington have on the 22 season?
And BYU Sports Nation All Access one-on-one as Jerem Jordan visits with Uriah Leiatawa. How does he feel about the bowl week preparations as the Cougars push towards Shreveport? This is BYU Sports Nation.
This portion of BYU Sports Nation is presented by BYU Food to Go, the MVP of your next event.
When BYU made such a difference in our lives, I think really helped mold us as to who we are. And so when we had that opportunity and came back to Boise and found out there was an active chapter, we thought, okay, that's something that I can really get behind and get involved in.
We want to promote the BYU experience all over the region. We want people who leave BYU to still stay connected.
Tim Daly Ford in Spanish Fork offers a large inventory of Ford vehicles, including a selection of cars and trucks, providing a range of transportation choices. From the Ford Fusion sedan and the Edge crossover SUV to a range of pickups including the F-150. Each product line comes with options to enhance performance, comfort, and safety. Think Ford, think Tim Daly Ford in Spanish Fork.
BYU Food to Go's convenient location at 2191 North Canyon Road in Provo makes bringing popular BYU foods to your next event easy. Everything's ready when you need it at the drive and load pickup. You drive in and they load no matter the weather. And stop in the on-site creamery for great BYU chocolate milk and ice cream. BYU Food to Go, bringing campus to your table. Call for details, 801-422-5001.
I'm fully supportive of your father's decision. This family needs time out.
We said peace and quiet. You don't get quieter than this.
Oh, you mean it's haunted?
I shall become their living nightmare.
Beyond Ghostbusters.
I have a plan. It's nice to meet you.
I am cussed.
This place is starting to feel like home.
How do you plead?
For mercy. For love is always with you, and love is stronger than death.
BYU Sports Nation is presented by the BYU Store, official outfitter of BYU fans everywhere.
Tomorrow's early signing day for BYU football. Be sure to tune in to BYU Sports Nation to meet the newest Cougs as we introduce you to the class of 2022. Let's just say Bronco Mendenhall stepping aside has yielded a few more dudes. It's tomorrow on BYU Sports Nation.
Fantastic.
Great.
5-star, a couple of 4 stars, 3 stars, all from Virginia flipping. Yeah.
Those kids who are members of the church who aren't going to Virginia, a couple are coming here, so let's go.
We are live in Studio B with your day-to-day BYU Sports play-by-play. I'm Spencer Linton alongside Jerem Jordan. Senior defensive lineman Uriah Leiatawa has enjoyed a remarkable, albeit injury-riddled final season at BYU. He's gone to church, Jerem, as he told us he would after the Utah game.
Yes, he has.
And he's ready for one more victorious football sermon in the bowl game. You had a chance to speak with him just recently.
Yes, I did. Here it is. All right, Lopa, the bowl game's this week, which is crazy. It feels like it's like in a week or two. No. It's this week. So what's preparation like for the team right now?
We've been practicing nonstop, actually, except on Sundays. We practice on Saturday. We practice today. We've been practicing like normal, just making sure we're all ready and we're not sleeping on these guys.
And that's important, right? I know you guys wanted New Year's Six. I know you wanted something big and amazing, and you were contracted with the Independence Bowl, and if New Year's Six didn't work out, this is what it was going to be. But you're playing in a unique place. You guys are used to hitting the road and going different places like Statesboro, Georgia, and whatever, right? So this is just another act there. So what's the motivation like to finish on a high? Because there is a difference between 10 and 11 wins in a season.
Yes. Yeah. So Kalani brought up a really good point last week, and he told us that BYU as a dynasty after the championship year in '84 has only gone 11 wins back-to-back once. And I believe it's the 05-06 year. And he talked to us about it, and he was like, how important it is to leave a legacy, how we can go from 11 wins last year to 11 wins this year. And only one team was able to do that, and that was 05 and 06. And so that's something that we took personal, and that's a victory that we want to be able to achieve and leave for BYU in general. One thing that I thought was really cool is that, we can't control, as players, we can't control who we are playing, What we control is how we play. And we did the best we could this year. We did the best we could this year, and we left it all on the table, and we were able to achieve 10 wins as a team. So that's something to be proud of as a team. And, with all the New Year's Six stuff and everything like that, that's something that you can't control as a player. So there's no point in getting mad about it. I was upset. Personally, I was upset. Like, who wouldn't be? But then after Kalani talked to us the next day, he made sure we all understood how it is, how grateful we should be to even be playing a game. I was here that 4-9 season when we didn't even have a bowl game. So being able to play this game.
You played in Hawaii in week 13. That was like a bowl game. Wait a minute.
Yeah, not really. Not really, though, but
yeah,
kind of. So
No, I feel there was no bowl swag. If there ain't no bowl swag, it ain't a bowl game, right?
Exactly. If there's none of that extra stuff, then this is really a bowl game.
Yeah, and we'll talk about the bowl here coming up. What's the best part of this season to you? Because there have been so many great moments.
Oh, man, that's a great question. I think the biggest one for me personally was beating Utah. To get that monkey off our backs. People forget about that because that was the early part of the year, but
people forget about it. What?
Oh, I think people keep sleeping on it sometimes, man, because that was only week 2 and we're so deep into the season now. But that was probably the biggest moment. I was so hyped after that game. That was such a great game.
It was an incredible game. I couldn't even get down to the field from the press box. It was like impossible.
Yeah.
I was going on the concourse trying to get down. People were like high-fiving me. We did it. We had it. It was like this. It was this great moment, right?
Yeah.
That was so cool. Okay, so the big news recently, of course, is Kalani Sitake being extended through 2027. I know what he means to you guys, but will you explain what that meant to the team? Because, yes, you're graduating and you're done after your 17-year career here, Uriah. But it's awesome to see that Kalani's going to stay, right?
Yeah, no, it's great that he's going to stay. People don't understand how he's finally found his groove. I've been here for forever now. And I've been here with him for a long time. And just seeing how he progressed as a coach is just so good. Like, he's hit his stride. He knows what he wants now, and he knows how to achieve it. So BYU did a great job of, like, nabbing him up because he's a hot commodity right now across the nation. So, like, it's smart of BYU. And he loves it here. I didn't doubt that he was going to leave. What I do love about his new contract is it's beneficial to everyone on his staff and even the players too. Kalani, every time I would ask him straight up, like, "Hey, bro, are you leaving to Oregon? Like, are you going to leave?" And he's like, "As long as they take care of you guys and the boys, I'm not going anywhere." And that's what he always repeated to me.
And that he's such an unselfish dude. Like, yes, he got his too.
Yeah.
But it's almost like what reminds me of, like, we went on missions, right? You go to help other people, but you end up helping yourself quite a bit as well, which is awesome. You talked about the impact on the players. How is his sort of contract and everything benefiting you guys?
Oh, it benefits the underclassmen for sure. They're going to have a consistent staff, you know, a scheme to understand, like a scheme to learn throughout the years. Like, they're going to continue to learn these things and improve in a, you know, like a scheme. Yeah. I just feel like it's really hard when you come into a new scheme and try to learn certain things. But the fact that Kalani and his staff are going to be here for a while, especially going into the Big 12, is going to benefit our young guys the most because they're going to have something constant throughout their career here that will not change. And that's very underrated in today's college football.
Yeah, continuity helps, right? It's awesome. Yeah. We're talking to Uriah Leiatawa, or Lopa, on BYU Sports Nation. Let's talk about how old you are. So when the show first started, Lopa, we announced you in the signing class in February, about 5 months into the show. We were on the radio only in 2014. Then you go on your mission. Then you come back. COVID year. Here we are in 2021. Do you feel like it was all worth it? Because guess what? You got to play in one of the greatest BYU football seasons ever, and the most unique in that you guys play 7 Power Fives, and amazingly, you guys go 6-1.
Yeah, I think it was worth it. I talked to a couple of the guys that left last year that are my same age, and they were like, "Man, I wish I could have been part of it." And I just think, like, man, I'm grateful to be here still. So it's dope. You know, I'm living it up this year, no matter what happens. So I've had fun. That's for sure. I've lived it up. I'm just grateful to be here. Yeah, it's been a while. Yeah, it has been a while. I remember in 2014 that happened. So yeah, crazy thing is I'm not even the oldest person on this team right now.
Who is it?
Neil's older than me.
Neil's older than you, and he could come back next year if he wants. Who knows if he will? He could bounce. Yeah. But he's older than you. That's crazy. That's crazy. Okay, let's talk about this bowl game. So UAB, you talked about, you guys are taking them seriously. They play some good ball, right? They cut the program a couple years. They're back. They're going for 9 wins. Yeah. They shut down the run really well. They throw the ball very well. Kind of what's top of mind with them?
They got some freaks on their team, you know. They got some freak athletes on their team. Like you mentioned before, their defense is like legit. They're a legit defense. We barely get to watch film on their defense, but we understand, like, when we do see them, like, oh, they're actually kind of good. They're like really good. So they're no one to sleep on. And their offense for sure is something we need to make sure we keep them contained, and especially their athletes out on the edge. Yeah.
They have some good players. It should be a fun game. Is there a benefit to playing a week before Christmas where you can just enjoy the holidays, or would you rather have that game like later in the Christmas season? I don't know what players prefer.
Honestly, it doesn't matter to me. I played in both. I remember when we played in the Hawaii Bowl, like right before Christmas. I thought that was fun too. And we played like the 24th. It was like Christmas Eve.
Yeah.
And yeah, so like that would have been, I think it would have been fine either way. But 18th is nice. We're going to be home nice and early for Christmas. So I'm excited for that.
Did you have fun in the USC game, given that you grew up rooting for UCLA with some of your brothers and everything, and you went into the Coliseum and repped the Cougs?
Yeah, if I didn't freaking kept cramping up, that would have been better. But that freaking game was great, man. It was awesome to be in there. They have some of the hardest turf ever. That field was horrible. It's underrated.
It looks nice, but I guess it's not.
It looks nice. It's just painted dirt. That's all it was.
That's really what it was.
AstroTurf? Jeez.
Like, it was straight dirt. So it was fun.
Well, best of luck continuing to prepare for UAB. Safe travels out to Louisiana. Have some fun in Shreveport. Eat some fun food. And bring back an 11th win, man.
Yes, let's go.
Uriah Leiatawa, one of my favorite personalities on this BYU football team. Hard not to love that dude. One of our early Deep Blue features out of Compton, California. So grateful to have him at BYU, and he's gone through so many injuries, maintained a really positive, uplifting attitude, and he means a lot to his defensive line teammates. He has battled this year.
His BYU journey has literally spanned the journey of this program, as I mentioned.
Yeah.
Because we mentioned him in our first signing day coverage, February of 2014.
Right before we hit the TV.
What? Yeah.
Pretty wild.
I'm still shocked this got on TV. Coming up, Blaine Fowler on the bowl game and the difference between 10 and 11 wins in his opinion.
Plus, who is the best three-point shooter on campus? One of the ladies would like to have a say. This is BYU Sports Nation.
Mm-hmm.
Dexter & Dexter is a full-service law firm offering a wide range of legal services. Since 1995, we have helped more than 20,000 Utahns both to navigate life's challenges and to make the most of life's opportunities. From auto accidents to criminal defense, and from bankruptcy to family law, we are passionate about shouldering your burdens. To learn more about scheduling a no-obligation consultation, visit dexterlaw.com.
Welcome to a partnership where customer experience comes first. It's our focus. It's your expectation. We provide support to those that go the extra mile for all of us. Supplying products, training, and service for generations. Learn more at bradyindustries.com.
I don't think I've ever turned on anything from BYU TV and not found myself smiling.
I think it's just really inspiring, just seeing people help one another.
It helps me show my kids good examples of the way that we should live.
I really like Studio C because we can all laugh together.
It's actually something that makes us reconnect and brings us closer to our family.
I love BYU TV.
All of us together.
This portion of BYU Sports Nation is presented by Visible Supply Chain Management.
Join us for BYU basketball with Mark Pope. Tonight, as the coach Gregor Bell recap last week, Utah State and Creighton look ahead to Weber State tonight at 8:30 Eastern on the BYU TV app.
He is Jeremiah Spencer. This is a Tuesday edition of BYU Sports Nation. Hope you're enjoying your December month. And to interact with the show, get more pre-Christmas content, follow us on our social media platforms, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok. I think we should whip it. And we will. The Cougar Whip Around presented by Visible Supply Chain Management, tackling America's most challenging shipping problems.
What does the return of Clark Barrington mean for the O-line?
That an already great offensive line becomes even greater. The strongest position group for BYU football next year undoubtedly will be the offensive line. They are loaded, and they are adding BYU's, I guess, only third ever five-star commitment, but he'll actually stay with BYU, I think, and won't transfer somewhere else. This is amazing, Jerem. The BYU offensive line is great and becoming greater.
Yeah, you can look at the way Tyler Algier performed this year and know how great that O-line was. Like, Tyler's been awesome, but if the O-line stinks, not everyone's Barry Sanders, where you overcome that. I think if all the quarterbacks come back, I would argue that that group's pretty strong too, maybe the strongest. But we'll see if everybody, Baylor Romney, what do you do if you're Baylor? If you want to play, maybe if you stay, I don't know. I would love for him to stay, but we'd be naive to think everybody's staying forever. So, yeah, it's going to be awesome. Clark's amazing.
To me, it's the greatest argument if you're trying to entice Tyler Algier to come back for one more year. You can run behind that line.
And honestly, we've talked about how tough this schedule is. There's not the quantity of Power 5s next year. There's 5, but the quality is way higher. Like, you're playing Notre Dame, you're playing Oregon, Arkansas's top 25 team.
Baylor. Provo.
Like, that's a tougher haul of games. Like, there are more potential losses, a.k.a. bigger splashes, than this year had.
Or more potential signature wins if everybody comes back.
That's what I mean by splash.
ESPN's Joe Lunardi has BYU men's basketball dropping 1 seed line in his latest projections from a 6 to the final 7 seed. Jeremy, is BYU in a better spot than expected in spite of 2 losses over the last 4 games?
Yes, but I don't think BYU's a 7. I would probably put BYU a little lower right now, given the loss of Gavin Baxter. They've lost 2 of the last 4. I think BYU will figure it out. It's just going to be different. BYU can't defend against teams with real good size. Obviously, Gonzaga is going to be a problem regardless of whether they have size or not. But there's going to be a couple teams where it's a little tricky. Luckily, the WCC is not. There's not like Ralph Sampson and Hakeem Olajuwon being thrown out there, so BYU will probably be okay. But there'll be a few games where it is tough. Granted, Creighton's a pretty good team.
Creighton is a really good team, and that is a tough road swing, early morning game at a neutral site that's a de facto road scenario. So the Creighton loss hurts. The one that really stings is obviously the Utah Valley game, but if Gavin Baxter, let's say he's in the game until at least the second half, BYU probably wins that game. That was just a weird game and scenario. So I'm giving BYU kind of a pass on that one because emotionally that's a lot to handle. Creighton game, they're just better than BYU, straight up.
That's the Baylor game in football.
Yeah.
I am concerned moving forward, though.
But BYU beat size at Missouri State on the road. They responded. So
Say the name of the team again?
Missouri State.
There, yeah.
It's a solid road win.
It is, but yeah, it's Missouri State. There's going to be tougher teams there that BYU's going to have to try and handle. Someone tweeted at former NFL receiver Chad Johnson asking if Zach Wilson is a lost cause. Johnson said, Zach Wilson is great, and, quote, once things around him are all on one accord, you'll see them flourish as a unit, end quote. Do you believe the Jets will do this?
Eventually, yes. But this is a slow build for Robert Saleh and the New York Jets. It's going to take a few years. This is not something that is going to happen this season or maybe even the early part of next season. It's going to be a while before the Jets are flourishing, and Zach Wilson specifically. And what is flourishing? A 500 record?
Flourishing feels like playoffs to me.
Like how do you define that?
Can you flourish if you're not in the playoffs?
He's been the NFL Rookie of the Week twice, which is nice. He's had some flashes of brilliance, but he's also had a boatload of rookie moments. It's just going to take a while. I believe that Zach will be a formidable quarterback in the NFL, but it's going to take a while. It's a slow build.
I fear that the Jets will undo Zach, meaning they'll never actually, it's tough. It's just tough. The Jets suck, and I hate that he's on the Jets. I really do. I hope that they're better in the future, and that's all I can do right now is hope.
When BYU gets into the Big 12.
I don't see a logistical way for that to happen because of their track record. Again, that can quickly change for the better. It could also stay the same. I hope it works out. I really do. I wish he was on a team that had a little higher ceiling.
Sure. When BYU gets into the Big 12, it'll be the push for all levels of BYU football players.
If you say so.
I kid. BYU men's basketball 10 spots out of the top 25. Will the Cougars return to the top 25 rankings before conference play begins in roughly 3 weeks?
If they run the table, they got a good shot. In Maui, there's a couple games that could be good. A Wyoming, a Stanford, a Vanderbilt, or whatever. Wyoming's really good right now. We'll see if I can't remember if they're on the same side of the bracket or not, or meet up. Maybe. It's hard in basketball.
Win 4 games, go 12-2. Yeah, maybe you're number 25 going into the conference season.
Is Tegan Graham the best three-point shooter on campus right now?
Yes. She made 10 three-pointers in the game. She set a school record and a program record for BYU women's basketball. Who's done that on the men's basketball team?
Nick Emery.
Currently.
Oh, currently? No.
Nobody.
Yeah.
It's Tegan, right? Got to be Tegan.
It's a fun combo because Spencer Johnson's shooting 48% right now. Alex Barcelo's shooting 46. Tegan's 45. Tegan has taken 10 more threes than anybody on the men's team and made 4 more.
Okay.
So the percentage just 1% behind Alex Barcelo, 3% behind Spencer. So interesting. She's definitely in the convo. That'd be a fun, video that we just go see them shooting threes at practice. That'd be fun.
If they beat Oklahoma, if they had beaten Oklahoma, Tegan, we just needed one more three.
You got a great game from Tegan. Unfortunately, some players, it wasn't their greatest game. You have that imbalance sometimes. Coming up, Top 5 Tuesday featuring some of the best Kalani Sitake wins.
Plus, our resident dual threat analyst, Uncle B, Blaine Fowler, joins the show. BYU football opens as a 6.5-point favorite. Is that enough for Uncle B? This is BYU Sports Nation. Hi, Spencer Linton here, letting you know when your company joins the BYU team as a corporate partner, your brand can be featured in sports programming on BYU TV and BYU Radio. In addition to all of the great games, you can be part of the BYU coaches shows, place your message in Countdown to Kickoff, basketball pre- and post-game shows, and each weekday on BYU Sports Nation. We invite your team to join ours and become a corporate sponsor of BYU Athletics. For details, email sponsorship@byu.edu today.
If I got hurt and was laid up at home, I wouldn't even think to call a lawyer. What a hassle. I'd want to meet them first.
What if I told you that for your first consultation, your lawyer will come to you, home or hospital?
Really?
Really.
They do that?
If you've been seriously injured, we'll come to you. It's your job to get better. It's our job to deal with the insurance companies and protect your legal rights.
Learn more at siegfriedandjensen.com.
Wrapping up in a Minky Couture luxurious blanket. Getting cozy with family and friends. A gift for everyone. Minky Couture, official luxury blanket of BYU Athletics.
In a competition to win it all, they'll put everything on the line. Nature can be challenging. Elements can be harsh. Tensions can run deep. And sometimes it may seem hopeless. But giving up is never an option. And if they band together as a family, they will always stand a chance. Wow! Because real victory isn't just about surviving together. It's about living together. Watch Survivalists on BYU TV or the free BYU TV app.
BYU Sports Nation is presented by the BYU Store, official outfitter of BYU fans everywhere.
On the newest Deep Blue podcast, I talked with Blaine Fowler about his recruitment to BYU, almost playing in the CFL and NFL and calling games for the Cougars for over 30 years. Listen to it on the BYU Radio app and where podcasts are found.
We won't talk about any of those things right now. Welcome back to BYU Sports Nation live from Studio B, because Uncle B is in studio with us once again. Of course, the Deep Blue segment, amazing. Love that conversation. What we do want to know right now is the haps with BYU football as they close out the 2021 season, Blaine, and that starts with locking in their coach. What does that mean for BYU football?
Yeah, it's huge for them. It's not just a continuity thing for the players that are currently in the program, but teams have used BYU's kind of hesitancy to do long-term deals with their coaches against them in recruiting forever. Where they just go, hey, they get, their assistants have year-to-year contracts. Their head coach, by the time you go on a mission and come back, that guy might not even be there. That gets used against BYU on a regular basis. And what both Mark Pope and Kalani wanted is they wanted to be able to say to players, that's a bunch of nonsense. Like, I'm locked in. Like, I will coach you for your entire career. Go on a mission, come back. I got you. My staff's locked in. We got you. You're going to come into a system that you know is good. I think that it impacts recruiting more than anything. And then second is consistency. And now when you have a year where there's a bunch of new guys coming in, they've been in the same system their whole career. It's just turnkey. This year is evidence of that.
Jaron Hall.
Right? This year is evidence of that. Where we were all going, hey, I got to admit, I was calling it a rebuilding year. Back in the olden days, you'd say, hey, BYU never rebuilds. It's a factory. It just reloads, and they're at that point with the kind of depth they have and the consistency of what they've been running on both sides of the ball. So we had all these new faces this year, but they've been running the same systems, and the older players tutor the younger players, and it becomes turnkey, and now a guy steps in, and you go, yeah, BYU reloads. They don't rebuild anymore. And I think this new contract secures those two things. The ability to recruit and say nonsense to, I'm not going to be here. I got you. I will be here. I'm going to take care of you. And, oh, by the way, with the consistency we've had, we're going to be good every year. So when you come back, you're going to get plugged right in, and we're going to be really, really good. I think it's huge.
It's awesome because what BYU did this year, it's good to overachieve sometimes. I think this team has overachieved, or maybe they've just achieved, but we had a fair assessment preseason. Dave McCann said 10 wins, and, we laughed. But this is the first.
I laughed at him.
This is the first time where it actually happened. You know what I mean? Yeah. Where you played a schedule like this, and you actually answered the bell, which is awesome. And it's because of what you just outlined. So now we're talking about the difference between 10 and 11 wins. Obviously, BYU needs to win this game. They should win this game against UAB. And you brought up, and something we should mention, Dwayne McBride, the stud running back who almost has 1,000 yards. He had an ankle injury where he was carted off in the last game for UAB against UTEP. He might not play. If he doesn't play,
that makes a big difference.
By 2 scores.
And then
especially because rain is in the forecast.
That 6-point line that we're talking about changes a big deal, and a lot, I think, in that case, if he can't go, because he's the focal point of their offense. And remember, this is a UAB team that is, I would say they're balanced, but they're balanced with a little heavier emphasis on run. So not like a lot of teams BYU's played this year. Baylor's balanced with an emphasis on run. Now, UAB's not close to as physical up front as Baylor is. I mean, Baylor is elite in the country up front. They manhandle everybody, and we saw that, right, when BYU played them face-to-face. UAB's not that level up front, not Baylor level. But at the running back position, if he doesn't go, that makes a big difference because they like to feature the running back. They like to run downhill. They like to play action pass. Everything goes off of the run. It's a good football team. And when I look at them on film, they remind me of Utah State, Boise State, talent-wise, which BYU's better than UAB. BYU has more talent than UAB. Just like they have more talent than Boise and they have more talent than Utah State. But I think we all learned that even though you have a little more talent, you can't go turn the ball over 4 times. If you're -4, if BYU's -4 or -3 against UAB, they'll lose.
Amen.
They will absolutely lose this game. UAB's good enough to do that. If BYU takes care of the ball, approaches this game the way they should, with the seriousness they should, and takes care of the football like they have, other than that one crazy aberration, then BYU should win, and it should be more than that 6 that you just talked about. So, and I was at practice last night. Sometimes you go to bowl week practices and people are out doing finals and seems like it's a little bit of a disconnect, and it's like, oh yeah, when we get down to the bowl site, things will all come back together. Last night's practice looked like a legit normal season practice. I was really impressed. When I left practice, I thought, okay, these guys are taking it seriously. It was spirited when they went ones to do crossover ones against ones. There was a big time competition. The offense ran a double reverse throwback touchdown pass when they went ones against ones, and the offense went nuts and they ran down the sideline and everybody was chest bumping. The defense had their heads down and they were disappointed. And I thought, hey, I'm loving this. I love that it did not seem to me like a bowl week practice. And I was involved in 5 bowl week practices as a player, and I've watched a lot.
In the Smith Fieldhouse.
And it seems like the level's always down a little bit. Not the case yesterday in practice. And I asked Gavin last night, I said, hey, I haven't been to a bunch of practices because it's been busy with basketball and all that. Has it been like that? And he goes, yeah, it's been. He goes, these guys have been really focused. So I love that going into this week. If they can maintain that through the week, I really like the way BYU goes into this game.
Okay, Blaine, really quickly before you have to leave us, and it's always unfortunate when you do, we've talked a lot about BYU potentially finishing as a top 10 team. It's only happened 3 times in the history of the program, and you were on 2 of those teams. 83 finished number 7, 84 obviously finished number 1, won the national championship. This team could finish in the top 10, just the 4th team ever. Does that automatically make them a top 4 team at BYU?
Last year's a really special team. I think when you get to 11 wins and finish in the top 15, you go down in history as one of the legendary teams. Absolutely. Last year we talk about it. This year maybe even more legit because of the schedule they played. It's like, who would have even thought that they could go play 7 Power 5 teams? So if they finish as a top 10 team with 11 wins, yeah, we have to talk about them with the teams that we call special, with the 96 team, with that 1980 team that won 11 games with Jim. All of those teams, we have to start talking about that, right? Especially because of the schedule. So this 11th opportunity for an 11th win, I think is huge. And, I can go, well, I was here 5 years. We won 11 4 times. The only time we didn't win 11 was in '82 when we were reloading at quarterback. We're going from Jim McMahon to Steve Young. Man, that's
what a tough
transition. We had a lot of young guys in '82. And then we went right back to it in '83, where we lost the opener, and then we won every game the rest of that season, and we won every game the next season, and then we finished up with a Citrus Bowl in '85, and Ohio State, we lost to them in our last game. That was the expectation, but you know what? I look at those 5 teams I played on, we didn't play a schedule like this one. So I'm ready to give them due credit. If they go out and win 11 games with the schedule they played, it's better than any schedule I ever played against. And it's better than the schedule the '96 team played against. We could talk about the 2009 team. It's better than the schedule the 2009 team played against. Yeah. So yes, if they go win this 11th game, finish in the top 10, I'm putting them up with that top 5, 6 legendary status.
Let's
Absolutely.
do this. Blaine, thanks for the time. Great to have you in Studio B.
All right, guys.
Okay, coming up, why BYU is going with the Midnight Virgil uniforms again. There's a great reason.
Plus, the top 5 wins of the Kalani Sitake era. Will you agree with our list? This is BYU Sports Nation.
This portion of BYU Sports Nation is presented by Delta Airlines. Keep climbing.
Trio Orem Senior Living believes in empowering seniors to live life to the fullest. We help eliminate stress out of daily life when you live at Trio. Less time focusing on housework means you can socialize at one of our many events, with safety in mind, of course. And did we mention our spacious apartments with modern amenities? Learn more about setting up a private tour at trioorem.com.
Hey family, if you're looking for something new to watch, stop scrolling and start streaming. BYU TV has a ton of great options to binge together. From bold adventure to family drama and even a little fun, there's something for everyone. Binge entire series, experience all the feels, immerse in non-stop intrigue, and treat yourself to unexpected turns. Think you know BYU TV? We're just getting started.
Come with us to a place where new beginnings and second chances have room to grow. Where past and future are present, and your fondest dream is so close, you can almost reach out and touch it.
This portion of BYU Sports Nation is presented by Mountain America, the official credit union of BYU Athletics.
On the latest BYU Sports Nation right now, there are less than 12 days till Christmas. Countdown's begun, but of course, Kiki's putting BYU twist on it. Check it out on the BYUSN Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook accounts.
BYU Sports Nation is always available on demand via the BYU TV and BYU radio apps. Let's get to Top 5 Tuesday, presented by Delta Airlines. BYU football, of course, has their coach, Kalani Sitake, under contract to 2027, worthy of his top 5 wins as the Cougar coach.
Year ago, 9th-ranked BYU traveled to the Blue Turf, looking for its first win ever against the 21st-ranked Broncos. The Cougars crushed it, 86 yards for Tyler Algier. BYU wins for the first time on the turf. Dax Milne, crazy game. Cade Fennigan, who, by the way, is at BYU now, was the quarterback for Boise State. His dad played at BYU in the 90s. He's here now. Caleb Christensen with the pick. It was a great win, man. It was so good. We had built it up as one of the biggest games in BYU history. BYU dominated by too much to where we didn't put it as a classic.
51-17 on the blue. All right, at Quattro. In 2019, the 24th-ranked USC Trojans visited LaVell Edwards Stadium with Kalani seeking his first signature home win over a ranked team. Ding, ding, ding. He got it. Zach Wilson, remember him, threw for 280 yards and a touchdown, rushed for a massive TD as well. Kalani got to celebrate this victory with the fans as they stormed the field following a lengthy review of a game-sealing interception by Dayan Gawoliku.
So fun. Just 1 week prior, number 3 to USC, BYU looking for its first win of the season in front of Rocky Top's 92,000 fans. Kavik Fonua with the interception. Late game heroics to Micah Simon!
The Micah miracle.
Who gets behind the defense. Jake Oldroyd makes the field goal to send it to OT and double OT. Tyson Williams makes it happen. The former South Carolina Gamecock in the SEC gets the win, and BYU wins in overtime. Crazy game.
Rocky Top revival. Oh, unforgettable. At number 2, let's rewind to 2018. Camp Randall in Madison, Wisconsin. The Cougars facing the 6th-ranked Badgers. Some trickeration. Kalani and the Cougs shocked the Badgers on that play and shocked the country. Squally Canada and a late missed field goal were also the demise of Wisconsin. Sitake's first win over a ranked opponent. The Cougars also jumped into the rankings for the first time under Kalani after this massive victory.
And the top win of the Kalani Sitake era is the win versus Utah this year. Of course, ending the streak of 9 losses in a row to the Utes of, almost 12 years. 26-17, got the Gatorade bath, Powerade at BYU actually. And, little crowd surfing with the crowd who stormed the field. The day after BYU was invited to the Big 12, it was arguably the greatest weekend in BYU sports history.
I love this celebration.
It was amazing.
So much. Our question of the day. What is the difference between 10 and 11 wins for Kalani Sitake and the legacy of this BYU football team? Our Elite Voice of the Day, presented by Sundance Mountain Resort from @BYU Arnolds on Twitter. Win, and it's a legacy of top 10 finish. Lose, and the legacy is 6-1 against Power 5, 5-0 against the Pac-12, breaking the streak to Utah and proving Jerem's P5 phobia wrong, as we'd have a better record than Power 5s versus Group of 5s. More Power 5s.
More.
It was so good we had to bring back that tweet.
Yeah, exactly.
Today's Rise and Shout Out presented by Mountain America, the official credit union of BYU Athletics.
Goes out to the Petersons. So BYU football put out a video of about Nathan and Emily, who own Serenoni Blankets. They've given out the senior blankets the last 4 years. Nathan has a progressive brain tumor and has been given 4 weeks to live. So the team is going to wear the Midnight Virgil unis for the bowl game, the same unis they wore on senior day, the day that the Petersons blankets were handed out. So that's very intense. Our thoughts and prayers with Nathan and Emily and the Peterson family. BYU loves you. We love you too. Best of luck with everything the next couple of weeks. I know that's a really hard situation.
Yeah, Nathan, a fantastic man. Love that family. He gave me a blanket himself at a corporate sponsorship golf tournament, Logan-based company. Fantastic people. We love you guys. Our thanks to today's guests, Uriah Leiatawa and Blaine Fowler.
Sorry to Dennis, ran out of time.
For Jerem, I am Spencer. Shout out to Kellen Fowler. We'll see you tomorrow for more BYU Sports Nation and more bowl game build-up. Go Cougs.